The garden at evening. In the beginning, when the world was new and unmarred, there was a garden where God walked in the cool of the day. Genesis tells us he came looking for Adam and Eve, not in the blaze of noon, but in the gentle hours, when shadows lengthen and the air grows soft. Even then, God preferred the quiet. He seeks you still in these tender moments, when the day releases its grip and rest becomes possible. Tonight, imagine him walking toward you, not in anger, but in longing. The way a father seeks a child at bedtime, ready to tuck away the day's troubles.
Noah's Ark, the door that closed. The rain had not yet begun. Noah stood inside the ark with his family, surrounded by the sounds of restless animals and the scent of fresh timber. Then Genesis 7:16 tells us something remarkable. The Lord shut him in. It was not Noah who closed the door. It was God himself. With his own hands, he sealed them safely inside before the first drops fell. You do not have to secure your own peace tonight. God shuts the door behind you. He keeps watch while you rest. Let that truth settle like a bolt sliding into place. The storms may come, but you are already enclosed in mercy. Abraham under the stars. One night, God led Abraham outside his tent. The old man's heart was heavy with doubt, childless, aging, holding only promises that seemed impossible. Genesis 15:5 says God told him, "Look now toward heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them." Abraham looked up. The desert sky stretched, infinite and blazing. Countless lights, each one a thought of God made visible. "So shall thy seed be," God said, and Abraham believed. Tonight, if your future feels uncertain, remember that God does not make small promises. He does not whisper half-truths beneath a narrow sky. He leads you into the open, shows you stars beyond counting, and asks only that you trust him. Every star above you now is a reminder. His faithfulness cannot be measured. Jacob's stone pillow. Jacob was running. He had deceived his father, stolen his brother's blessing, and now fled into the wilderness alone. Exhausted, he stopped in a barren place. No bed, no shelter, only stones. He took one, placed it under his head, and slept. And in that sleep, he dreamed. Genesis 28 tells us he saw a ladder reaching from earth to heaven, with angels ascending and descending, and at the top stood the Lord himself, speaking promises over a man who had nothing but guilt and a rock for a pillow. When Jacob woke, he said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not." God meets you where you are, even in the barren places, even when you feel unworthy, even when all you have is weariness. This bed, this moment, this breath, God is here, and he is speaking still. Joseph in the prison. For years, Joseph sat in Egyptian prison, forgotten by those he had helped, separated from his family, his dreams seeming like cruel jokes. But Genesis 39:21 says something quiet and profound. The Lord was with Joseph. Not had been, not would be, was. Even in the dark cell, even in the silence of injustice, God's presence remained. If your night feels long, if your circumstances seem unchanging, remember Joseph. The story was not over. The prison was not the end. God was with him in the waiting, and God is with you now. Rest in that presence. The morning of deliverance is already written. The burning bush that did not consume. Moses was tending sheep in the wilderness when he saw it, a bush on fire, flames leaping, but the branches did not burn. Exodus 3 says he turned aside to see this great sight, and when he did, God called his name. The bush burned, but was not consumed, a picture of what God does with suffering. He enters into the fire with you. His presence does not remove the flame, but it keeps you whole within it. Tonight, whatever burns in your mind or heart, know this: you will not be consumed. God tends the flame. He knows exactly how much heat you can bear, and He will not let it destroy you. The fire that seems overwhelming now may be the very place where God calls your name.
The manna in the morning. For 40 years, the Israelites wandered the desert. Every morning they woke to find bread on the ground, manna, which means, what is it? Exodus 16 says it appeared with the dew, soft and small, covering the earth like frost. They could not store it. They could not hoard it. They had to trust that it would come again tomorrow. Rest is like manna. It must be received daily. You cannot stockpile peace or save up sleep against future anxieties. Tonight is tonight's portion. Tomorrow will have its own. Trust that when you wake, God's provision will be there again, faithful as the dawn, gentle as dew. Elijah under the juniper tree. The prophet had just called fire from heaven. He had seen God's power shatter the impossible. And then one threat from one queen, and Elijah ran. He collapsed under a juniper tree in the wilderness, exhausted, afraid, wanting to die. "It is enough," he said, "take my life." But 1 Kings 19 tells us what happened next. An angel touched him and said, "Arise and eat." Twice the angel came. Twice there was bread and strength waiting. And then Elijah slept. God did not scold him for his fear. He did not lecture him about faith. He fed him. He let him rest. If you are weary beyond words tonight, if you feel you cannot go on, remember Elijah. God's first response to your exhaustion is not demands, but care. Rest now. Bread and strength will come in the morning. David in the cave. King Saul was hunting David, determined to kill the one God had anointed. David hid in the cave of Adullam, surrounded by a ragtag band of the broken and desperate. But Psalm 57, written in that cave, begins, "Be merciful unto me, O God, for my soul trusteth in thee. Yea, in the shadow of thy wings will I make my refuge, until these calamities be overpast." David did not pretend the danger was gone. He did not ignore the calamities, but he chose refuge anyway. Even in the cave, even in the dark, he found the shadow of God's wings. Your circumstances may not change tonight, but refuge is not about location. It is about presence. God's wings spread over caves as surely as palaces. Daniel in the lion's den. They threw him into the pit at evening. The king, who loved Daniel, could not sleep. He fasted through the night, pacing, anxious. But Daniel 6 suggests he rested. When morning came and the king ran to the den, calling out, Daniel answered calmly, "My God hath sent his angel, and hath shut the lions' mouths." The lions were there, the danger was real, but the angel was closer. Whatever lions circle your thoughts tonight, fear, regret, worry, grief, God can shut their mouths. You may not feel the angel,
You may still hear the growling, but the presence is there, standing between you and harm. Sleep as Daniel slept, not because the lions were gone, but because the angel was near. Jonah in the belly of the fish. He ran from God and ended up in the deep, swallowed by a great fish, sunk into darkness and salt water. And there, in the belly of that beast, Jonah prayed. Jonah 2 records his words, "Out of the belly of hell cried I, and thou heardest my voice." Even from the depths, even from the place of rebellion and consequence, God heard. You may feel swallowed tonight, by mistakes, by circumstances, by your own choices. But listen, God hears from the depths. Prayer does not require a temple or a mountaintop. It works even in the belly of the fish. And 3 days later, the fish vomited Jonah onto dry land, a second chance, a new beginning. Your story is not over. Rest now in the mercy that hears even from the deep. Jesus asleep in the storm. The disciples were rowing hard, waves crashing over the boat, wind tearing at the sails. And where was Jesus? Mark 4:38 says he was in the hinder part of the ship, asleep on a pillow. A storm raged, and the Son of God slept. Not because he did not care, not because he was unaware, but because he knew who his Father was. When they woke him in panic, he stood and said 3 words, "Peace, be still," and the wind obeyed. Tonight, let this image quiet your heart. Jesus asleep in the storm. If the Savior could rest in the chaos, you can too. Not because the waves are not real, but because the one who commands them is with you in the boat.
The empty tomb at dawn. Mary Magdalene came to the tomb while it was still dark. She had watched him die. She had seen them seal the stone. But John 20 says when she arrived, the stone was rolled away. She ran to tell the disciples, "They have taken away the Lord." But Jesus was not taken. He had risen. And when he appeared to her, he said one word, "Mary." Her name. Every sorrow you carry tonight, every grief that feels like stone sealed over hope, remember the empty tomb. Death is not the end. Loss is not final. The God who rolled away that stone can move whatever blocks your peace. And he knows your name. The road to Emmaus. 2 disciples walked away from Jerusalem, hearts heavy, dreams shattered, and a stranger joined them. They talked for miles. He explained the scriptures. He opened their understanding. But Luke 24 says they did not recognize him until he broke bread with them. Then their eyes were opened, and they said, "Did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us by the way?" Jesus was with them the whole time, and they did not know it. Tonight, you are not walking alone. He is with you, speaking truth, warming your heart, even if you do not yet see him clearly. Rest in this. The presence is real, even when recognition is delayed. The final word, Revelation's promise. The last book of the Bible ends with a promise. "And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away." One day the night will end for good. One day rest will be unbroken. One day every story will find its resolution in him. But even now, tonight, you taste that future rest. Every good sleep is a rehearsal for eternity.
Every moment of peace is a glimpse of what is coming. So close your eyes, beloved. The God who walked with Adam in the garden, who shut Noah in the ark, who showed Abraham the stars, who met Jacob on the stone, who stayed with Joseph in prison, who called Moses from the fire, who fed Elijah under the tree, who sheltered David in the cave, who shut the lions' mouths for Daniel, who heard Jonah from the deep, who slept in the storm, who rose from the tomb, who walked unrecognized to Emmaus, and who will one day wipe every tear. That same God watches over you now. Rest in His story. You are part of it, and the best chapters are still to come.